Welcome back to our channel, Serious Story Sessions. If you like our content and wish to see more from us, please click that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for future videos. Your support means the world to us, and we thank you. Enjoy the video. My monster-in-law tried to destroy my marriage, my career, and my sanity, but I'm finally free. I never thought I'd be one of those women with mother-in-law problems. Then I married David, and Margaret entered my life like a hurricane disguised as a helpful breeze. Let me start from the beginning. I met David 5 years ago at a friend's wedding. He was the best man, I was a bridesmaid, and we hit it off immediately. He was kind, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in my work as a graphic designer. After dating for 2 years, he proposed, and I was over the moon. During our dating phase, I'd only met his mother Margaret a handful of times. She seemed pleasant enough, a bit controlling perhaps, but nothing alarming. She'd make comments about David's ex-girlfriends or suggest he could do better career-wise, but I chalked it up to typical mom stuff. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags waving frantically in my face. The trouble began during wedding planning. Margaret insisted on being involved in every decision, from the venue to the napkin colors. When I chose a beautiful outdoor garden for our ceremony, she complained about her allergies. When I selected my dress, she said it made me look hippie. She even tried to change our guest list, adding 15 of her bridge club friends while suggesting we cut my college roommates. David tried to mediate, but he'd been placating his mother for 30 years. He'd say things like, "That's just how she is," or "She means well." I bit my tongue for the sake of peace. Telling myself it would get better after the wedding, I was catastrophically wrong. The week after our honeymoon, Margaret showed up at our apartment unannounced with boxes of David's childhood memorabilia. "These should be displayed properly," she announced, eyeing my minimalist decorating style with disapproval. She spent 3 hours rearranging our living room while I sat silently fuming. Then came the weekly Sunday dinners. Margaret insisted we come to her house every Sunday at 4 p.m. sharp. If we were even 5 minutes late, she'd call David repeatedly, voice trembling with manufactured concern. I was worried something terrible had happened. During these dinners, she'd interrogate me about my work, our finances, and when we planned to have children. "You're not getting any younger, dear," she'd say, though I was only 29. "David would make such a wonderful father. My friend Cheryl's daughter just had her third, and she's younger than you." When I landed a big contract with a major client, Margaret somehow made it about her. "It's so nice that your little drawings are bringing in money," she said. "Though I always hoped David would marry someone who could be home more. Children need their mother." David and I weren't even trying for kids yet. The worst part was how she'd undermine me when David wasn't in the room. "That shirt doesn't do you any favors," or "David always said he wanted a big family, but I suppose your career comes first." Then when he returned, she'd be all smiles and sweetness. I tried talking to David about it, but he'd get defensive. "She's just been lonely since Dad died," he'd explain. "She doesn't mean anything by it." 6 months into our marriage, Margaret surprised us by purchasing a house 3 blocks from ours. "Now I can pop over whenever you need me," she exclaimed. And pop over she did, at least 4 times a week, always without calling first. Things came to a head when I received an amazing job offer from a prestigious design agency. The only catch was it would require occasional travel, maybe 1 week every couple of months. I was thrilled. But when I told David over dinner, Margaret, who had just dropped by, immediately chimed in. "You'd leave my son alone while you gallivant around the country? What kind of wife does that?" Before I could respond, she turned to David. "Honey, remember how your father and I were never apart for more than a day? That's what marriage is supposed to be." To my shock, David nodded. "Mom has a point. It would be hard having you gone so much." I was stunned. This was my dream opportunity, and they were acting like I'd suggested abandoning my family to join the circus. The job would mean better pay, creative fulfillment, and career advancement. But Margaret had planted her seed of doubt, and David was watering it faithfully. That night, I tried again to make David understand how important this was to me. His response? "Maybe we should wait until after we have kids." "Mom says your biological clock is ticking." I exploded. "Your mother has nothing to do with my biological clock or my career choices." We had our first major fight that night. I took the job anyway, but the damage was done. Every time I had to travel, Margaret would come keep David company, filling his head with who knows what. She'd send me texts like, "Don't worry about David, I made his favorite dinner," or "He's not feeling well, but I'm taking care of him." When I returned from my first business trip, I found Margaret had rearranged our bedroom furniture to improve the feng shui for fertility. She'd also replaced my sleek, modern bedside lamp with a gaudy floral monstrosity from her own house. The holidays were an absolute nightmare. For Thanksgiving, Margaret insisted we host at our house, but then showed up 3 hours early to help. She criticized everything from my turkey basting technique to the way I folded napkins. When dinner was served, she announced to everyone that she had saved the meal after finding me completely overwhelmed in the kitchen. For Christmas, she gave David expensive gifts and handed me a diet cookbook and a gift certificate for a makeover. "I thought you might want to do something nice with your hair, dear," she said sweetly. David always loved women with longer hair. The final straw came on New Year's Eve. David and I had planned a quiet evening at home, just the 2 of us with champagne and takeout. At 10 p.m., the doorbell rang. It was Margaret, teary-eyed and dramatic. "I couldn't bear to be alone tonight," she sobbed. The first new year without your father was hard enough, but being completely alone is just too much. David immediately invited her in. She planted herself between us on the sofa and dominated the conversation until midnight, when she kissed David on both cheeks and gave me a stiff pat on the shoulder. As she was leaving, I overheard her whisper to David, "She doesn't make you happy, does she? I can see it in your eyes." After New Year's, I realized something had to change. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Bitter, angry, constantly on edge. David and I were fighting more than ever. Usually about his mother, I suggested marriage counseling. To my surprise, David agreed. Our first session was revealing. The therapist, Dr. Chen, asked us to describe our biggest challenges. I mentioned Margaret's interference. David claimed I was oversensitive and didn't appreciate family. 3 sessions in, Dr. Chen suggested we discuss boundaries. "David," she said gently, "how would you feel about limiting your mother's unannounced visits?" David looked uncomfortable. "That would really hurt her feelings." "And how do you feel about your wife's feelings being hurt?" Dr. Chen asked. That question hung in the air. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in David's eyes. In our private session, Dr. Chen told me something I'll never forget. "You're not just married to David, you're married to his relationship with his mother." That night, I tried a new approach with David. Instead of complaining about Margaret, I talked about us, our dreams, our future, what we wanted our marriage to be. I asked him if he was happy with how things were going. After a long silence, he admitted he wasn't. "But I don't know how to make everyone happy," he said. "You can't," I replied. "And it's not your job to make your mother happy. That's her responsibility." We agreed to set some boundaries. Margaret would need to call before visiting, Sunday dinners would be reduced to twice a month, and most importantly, David would stop discussing our private matters with her. When David called Margaret to explain our new boundaries, she cried. Then she got angry. Then she showed up at our door at 7 a.m. the next day, demanding to know what I'd done to her son. I let David handle it, listening from the kitchen as he tried to stand firm. Margaret's voice rose to a shriek. "After everything I've done for you, this is her doing, isn't it? She's turning you against me." She left in tears, but that was just the beginning of her campaign. First came the flying monkeys, calls from David's aunts, his sister, even his elderly grandmother, all concerned that he was abandoning his mother. Then Margaret started having mysterious health scares, nothing serious enough for hospitalization, but concerning enough to make David worry. She sent him articles about toxic daughters-in-law and books about ungrateful children. She posted vague, passive-aggressive Facebook statuses that her friends commented on with supportive outrage. The worst part? It was working. David was wavering, the guilt eating away at his resolve. "Maybe we could have dinner with her this Sunday," he'd suggest. She sounded really lonely. Then I discovered something that changed everything. While working from home one day, I answered a call to our landline from an unfamiliar number. It was a woman named Jessica from a real estate agency. "I'm just following up about the house listing Mrs. Winters wanted," she said cheerfully. "Has she decided on a price point yet?" Confused, I asked for clarification. Apparently Margaret had contacted them about selling our house. When I confronted David, he was as shocked as I was. We called the agency together, and Jessica explained that Margaret had claimed to be helping her busy son and daughter-in-law find a larger home closer to her. She'd even scheduled viewings for us. David was finally seeing his mother clearly. He called her immediately, putting the call on speaker. "Mom, did you contact River City Realty about selling our house?" Margaret's response was telling. Instead of denying it, she said, "I was trying to help. That starter home is too small for a family, and I found the perfect place just 2 doors down from me." David's face went pale. "Mom, you had no right to do that. We're not selling our house, and if we were, we'd choose our own realtor." "Well, I never," Margaret huffed. "After all I've done for you, this is the thanks I get? That wife of yours has completely brainwashed you." After hanging up, David sat in silence for a long time. Then he looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't want to see it." The real estate incident was just the tip of the iceberg. Once we started comparing notes, David and I realized Margaret had been manipulating both of us for years. She'd told David I'd said things I never did. She'd accidentally deleted messages from me on his phone. She'd told mutual friends I was controlling and keeping David from his family. During a particularly intense therapy session, Dr. Chen helped us see the pattern of manipulation clearly. David finally admitted what he'd been avoiding. His relationship with his mother was unhealthy and always had been. "I think we need to give her an ultimatum," I said that evening. "She either respects our boundaries, or we limit contact." David nodded slowly. "I know you're right, she's my mother." "And I'm your wife," I replied, taking his hand. "The person you chose to build a life with." The next day, we invited Margaret to our home for a serious conversation. I'd prepared what I wanted to say, practicing in the mirror to keep my voice steady and calm. Margaret arrived looking martyred, as if she were walking into her own execution. She refused coffee, refused to take off her coat, and sat perched on the edge of our sofa like she might need to make a quick escape. "Mom," David began, "we need to talk about your involvement in our marriage." Margaret immediately teared up. "So now I'm not allowed to be part of your life? After everything I've sacrificed?" I took a deep breath. "Margaret, we're not saying that, we're saying there need to be clear boundaries." What followed was 2 hours of circular arguments, tears, and accusations. Margaret denied everything, then justified her actions, then claimed we were exaggerating. When none of that worked, she collapsed into dramatic sobs. "If your father were alive," she wailed. To my surprise, David cut her off. "Dad would be ashamed of how you're acting. He always respected other people's marriages." Margaret gasped as if she'd been slapped. Then her expression changed, hardening into something cold and unfamiliar. "I see how it is," she said quietly. "After everything I've done, you choose her." "This isn't about choosing," David explained. "It's about respect." Margaret stood up, gathering her purse and dignity. "Well, when this marriage falls apart, and it will, don't come crawling back to me." At the door, she turned to deliver one final blow. "You know she's just using you for financial stability, right? I saw her flirting with that client of hers. Everyone's talking about it." After she left, David and I sat in stunned silence. Then he took my hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't protect you from her." Margaret's response to the ultimatum was nuclear. She began a smear campaign that would have impressed a political operative. Suddenly, family members who had always been friendly were cold to me. Friends from David's childhood heard things about our marriage problems. She sent a group email to the entire family detailing how we had cruelly cut her off and forbidden her to see her only son. The fact that we'd simply asked her to call before visiting was conveniently omitted. The most devastating blow came when she somehow got the email of my biggest client and sent them concerns about my professionalism, suggesting I was having marital problems that were affecting my work. I only discovered this when my contact awkwardly mentioned receiving a strange email from someone claiming to be family. I was livid. This had gone beyond annoying mother-in-law territory into something truly malicious. "She's trying to destroy my career now," I told David, showing him the forwarded email. "This has to stop." David was horrified. That night, he called his mother while I sat beside him, holding his hand for support. "Mom, I know about the email you sent to Sarah's client," he said firmly. "I don't know what you're talking about," Margaret replied, her voice sugary with false innocence. "Don't lie to me," David's voice hardened. "This stops now, or we'll have no choice but to cut contact completely." There was a long silence, then Margaret's voice changed, dropping the pretense. "She deserves it. She stole you from me." David closed his eyes, pain etched across his face. "Mom, I'm a grown man. Nobody stole me. I chose Sarah, and I choose her every day. If you can't accept that and respect her, then you're choosing not to be part of our lives." He hung up while she was still protesting, then turned to me with tears in his eyes. "I think we need a break from her. A real one." It's been 6 months since we implemented what Dr. Chen calls a communication hiatus with Margaret. 6 months of no surprise visits, no guilt trips, no undermining comments. The change in our marriage has been profound. Without Margaret's constant interference, we've rediscovered why we fell in love in the first place. David is more relaxed, more confident in making decisions without seeking his mother's approval. I've thrived at work, landing 2 new major clients and receiving a promotion. The constant stress knot in my stomach has finally dissolved. We're talking about starting a family now, on our terms and our timeline. Margaret hasn't taken the separation well. She's cycled through anger, martyrdom, and manipulation. She sent David a Mother's Day card that just said, "I forgive you," as if he'd done something wrong. She had a medical emergency that turned out to be mild indigestion. She even showed up at our door once, but we stayed firm and didn't let her in last week. David received a letter from her, an actual handwritten letter. In it, she acknowledged, vaguely, that she might have overstepped occasionally. She expressed a desire to start fresh and asked if we could have dinner sometime. David showed me the letter, his expression cautious. "What do you think?" I took my time before answering. "If you want to see her, I support that, but I think we need to be clear about our expectations." Together, we drafted a response. David would meet her for lunch, alone at first, and see if she was genuinely ready to respect our boundaries. If that went well, we might try dinner together, in a public restaurant where she'd be less likely to create a scene. "And if she hasn't changed?" I asked. David squeezed my hand. "Then we continue as we are. You're my priority, Sarah, not her." Yesterday was the lunch. I waited anxiously at home, half expecting an angry Margaret to show up at our door afterward. When David returned, his expression was thoughtful. "She tried," he said. "She really did. Made it almost all the way through lunch before suggesting we move to a bigger house." We both laughed, and I felt the last bit of tension leave my body. Whether Margaret eventually accepts our boundaries or not, I know we'll be okay. David has chosen us, our marriage, our partnership, our future. I'm finally free from living under Margaret's shadow, from second-guessing myself, from walking on eggshells in my own home. Free to be the wife, professional, and eventually the mother I want to be. As for Margaret, she'll always be David's mother, but she's no longer the third person in our marriage. And that's a victory I never thought possible a year ago. Sometimes I think about that frightened, angry woman I was becoming, and feel nothing but relief that I found my voice before it was too late. If there's one thing I've learned from this ordeal, it's that boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary for healthy relationships. And to any woman out there dealing with her own monster-in-law, you're not crazy, you're not overreacting, and you deserve respect. Stand your ground. Your sanity depends on it. If you enjoyed this kind of content, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next batch of stories. See you all next time. Goodbye for now.